Hi guys, welcome back to the channel Strip, where we channel our energy into learning new things and strip away negative misconceptions. It's my second time in Ghana. I was super struggling, work, family. This video is just an opportunity for me, opportunity to work. I haven't scripted this video. I want to reflect on my journey as a doctor, how I progressed. Full-time work isn't for me. I'm a creative, I love music, I want to YouTube. That 6 months was fabulous. People who come into your life and just allow you to give you space they're special. And when you have those people, identify them, recognize them, be grateful for them. My unique challenge is I probably have ADHD, probably. Understanding anxiety, understanding my energy levels, meaningful change. Even talking about this is hard for me, to be honest, because I'm remembering things and I'm not going to cry on camera. Hi guys, welcome back to the channel Strip, where we channel our energy into learning new things and strip away negative misconceptions. It is, I have no idea, I'm gonna guess about 7 in the morning in Accra, Ghana. I'm on my annual leave. Take a look at this, guys. Isn't it beautiful? It's a fantastic view. This has been my view for the last, it'll be a total of 2 weeks. I just thought I'd reflect out loud and touch bases with you guys. Just want to show you my mug. I got it here in Ghana. See, it says, trust in the Lord. Okay, Proverbs 3:5. I got it in a shop here in Ghana. And yeah, I absolutely love it. Okay. This jumper belongs to Joy. Joy is my mentor. She wears a lot of hats. Mentor, life sort of partner, in the sense of sort of walking, and she calls it journeying with you. It's essentially scrutinizing your thought patterns, asking you difficult questions, and making sure you are keeping in step with your life goals. It's my second time in Ghana. I came here last year when life was really tough and I was super struggling, work, family, relationships, everything felt like it was a burden to me. So came here and I was really able to unpack. And I'm back again, a mere 6 months later, in a different headspace, much more settled before coming, in the sense of where life was at. I was more quiescent, a bit more sort of, I'd say I was in a space where I had sort of entered into myself. I had reclused. I was doing very little in the last 6 months of this year. So January to July, I've more or less just gone to work and come back home and gone to work the next day and watched Netflix, gave up on the gym. I've just been a recluse. So I'm back here again to just touch bases with life, get a bit of rest. It's been a good time. Let's jump into the video. So, as we always do, welcome to the channel Strip, where we channel our energy into learning new things and strip away negative misconceptions. This video is just an opportunity for me to reflect on my journey as a medical doctor, as a pediatric trainee, where I'm at in life now. I'm just basically hitting a point where I'm finished the basic specialist training in pediatrics. So in Ireland, what that is you go to medical school, finish 4 years, then you can do anything, but the options include when you come back from med school, when you finish medical school, you do your internship, which is mandatory for you to be licensed to practice in Ireland, and then the next best thing for you to do then would be to get in a scheme of your choosing, so any of the specialties that you prefer. So I had gone into pediatrics, and that's a 2-year training scheme. It's called the basic specialist training. It comes with 3 exams at the end of that period, and then if you're progressing to sort of consultancy, you need to do your higher specialist training, which is a 5-6 year program, plus minus fellowship in another country, to sort of solidify your knowledge, build on your skills, and progress to consultancy. So I'm just finished now that 2-year period, literally finished it, and now I'm on a 2-week annual leave break, and then I'm starting a new job. In my time, I'm not sure when this video will be out. I start a new job next week, Monday, so, about 5 days from now. So yeah, I'm not progressing on to the higher specialist training, and I'll explain why in a bit, but I'm going to do what we call a standalone reg year, which is an opportunity to work like you would be working if you were in a specialist training, but without the formal training component, without the formal sort of supervisors, the formal sort of process that comes with that. I haven't scripted this video, so I just want to, whatever comes out, comes out. I want to reflect on my journey as a doctor, how I've progressed, what that looked like for me. Particularly, I want to focus in on my challenges and just talk about it. It's less of a thing where I feel like maybe it might help someone, or maybe it's just an opportunity for me to just vlog on my own sort of, I suppose, place in life at this time. Yeah, so I'll start from the start. So obviously I did intern year, finished intern year, got straight onto the BSD scheme. I always kind of knew from first year of med school, I'm going to do peds. I love the kids. I want to stay in that space. So I kind of geared my CV from medical school to sort of look like that, and it wasn't too hard to do. I've always loved kids, so it's easy to pull references and to do things in school that sort of point you in that path. And once I got on the scheme, I think if you look at my channel, there's a video I posted about communication with doctors, and that video had been birthed from a period of a very difficult last 3 months of intern year, where I had worked with a particular consultant who, had met me at a time when I was medically burnt out from work, and who was in a position in her life where she was a brand new consultant, and I think had a lot of fire and interest and a desire for her team members to be at a certain level that I just wasn't in the headspace to be able to work at that, to be able to sustain that type of work, because I was burnt out when I was at the end of the rotation. So some of those thoughts came from that. My challenges with communication as a doctor, the things I had learned just coming into full-time work, and the things I had sort of picked up on that are unique to me as in terms of my own unique challenges that added a layer, to what it's like being a doctor. So that's where that video was birthed from. So, I was coming into first year BSD here, on the floor. Burnt out, tired, confidence wasn't quite there. I wasn't quite where I wanted to be. And also mentally, I was already processing my way out of pediatrics, because I just came in with such a tired headspace that I was just I don't think clinical medicine is for me. Full-time work isn't for me. I'm a creative, I love music, I want to YouTube. Maybe now is the time to leave this space. So then I met a fresh consultant in the terms of her first consultant job. And, I just kind of thought that new consultants have this sort of excitement to get things done, which is the case, but her approach was different. Well, first of all, she read me like a book. Let's just start there. So she read me like a book. She pulled me aside and said, "Favourite, I can sense it. You're kind of checked out already. You kind of have given up on the concept of being a good doctor, and you just want to get by." And I liked her a lot, so I would come to her with my ideas. I had entrepreneurship ideas in the space of medicine. Maybe we'd make a stethoscope that does this. Maybe I'd come to her with at this stage maybe 3 ideas that I was this is something that we could apply for funding for. She just kind of said, "Girl, you have given up on the basics of clinical medicine. You want to sort of get into that space, and as much as there's nothing wrong with that, build a foundation and make sure that you give yourself a good chance at being a good doctor." So she would take me in every week, and we would go through back to med school content, just rudimentary clinical medicine, specific to the specialty that we were in. I just kind of want to keep it clean so that there's no identifiable things in my story. So she spent every week with me, at least an hour, going through stuff. I mean, she invested in me, right? And she pushed me, and she didn't do it in a way that would... She's also not the type of person who would spoon feed you. So that was challenging for me to sort of navigate, because I guess I preferred that style of mentorship, even though I went to University of Limerick and they're not spoon feeders, right? But I think, again, there's an element of being burnt out from seeking out information that there's a part of me that wanted to be sort of led from my learning perspective, but she had a really nice balance of, "No, Favour, you're going to do this for yourself, but I'm going to help you along the way. So that 6 months was fabulous. I also was so lucky to have met a registrar who I'm still in communication with now. I mean, I had two registrars that were both fantastic, but one of them in particular just took a shine to me, and we spoke so much over lunch, and I would more or less rant to this guy. People who come into your life and just allow you to give you space to just be, they're special. I mean, you have those people, identify them, recognize them, be grateful for them, and make sure you let them know what they mean to you, you know? So anyhow, I had all this support in place, and that first job really got me to a point where I was like, not only can I do this job, but I actually like this job. It just reminded me why I wanted to be a doctor, and why I wanted to be in pediatrics, you know? So there's that. Then the next 6 months was sort of outside Dublin, which is where I live. And that job provided a little bit more independence. I was working in a smaller ED unit. There were challenges there, a lot of challenges actually. A little bit more independence, and another video, communication challenges within doctors. There was a day when I felt very unsafe. I thought that someone was going to physically harm me, another doctor. I actually approached HR with this, and they disappointed me in how they managed it. They almost kind of said to me that if you pursue this to a higher level, that maybe it's going to tarnish your name, and you don't have any evidence, and the cameras in the hallway in that particular hospital at that particular time wasn't working, and you don't have any other. So there was a lot, and eventually I dropped the matter. I mean, would I handle things differently going forward? I'm not sure. You know, it's funny because I've not spent time reflecting on this to see how did this impact me, what do I think of like this and stuff like that. I think he was just a bad egg in a bigger bunch, because I mean, I've worked with many male doctors. I've never felt unsafe in my life, so he was just a rotten egg in a good bunch. Other communication issues arose in that job, working with people from different ethnic backgrounds, being in a part of the team that's completely non-Irish in a sense, and that had its own sort of challenges and things that shouldn't have happened, where people who were supposed to be my leaders are not communicating in English, word rounding and not communicating in English, and things that it's just nasty, as far as I'm concerned, from a perspective of you have a junior member on the team, a valuable member of the team, and also you're in an English-speaking country, speak English. So again, and maybe another video. So there was a lot of communication issues in that second job, but I really found my own, because I grew a lot. ED just pushes you, okay? You just see volume, you see a lot, and after a while you recognize patterns, right? That's what medicine is, pattern recognition. So you get an opportunity to, discuss with the reg here and there, and then you go ahead and sort of start to make your own calls. And of course, depending on the quality of the reg you have, and the months progress, you start to make more and more of your own calls. Guys, did you hear their info? Absolutely smashing. Just smashing. It's just so soothing being up here. Over the 6 months, you get more confidence in yourself, and the regs start to feel more confident in you, and they just kind of let you do your thing. That was my first year as a BST doctor, basic specialist trainee. So I'm going into my second year now. Now I've moved on to another hospital still. So I'm working in a subspecialty hospital. And this job presented an insane amount of challenges for me. I mean, it was close to ridiculous. You might wonder why that is. Like, why did that job provide such challenges? Why was it hard for me to navigate that 6 months? And the overarching theme of that experience was positive, because I was challenged and I grew so much. I think towards the end I gave up on the growth. I said, enough growth for me now. I don't want to grow anymore. I just want to survive this job and get out of here. But overall theme was positive. In terms of like, what were the challenges? Obviously at this stage I'm in my second year as a trainee, and the expectation is that you know what you're at, and that's the case. And not that I didn't know what I was at, but again, my unique challenges, right? There are certain things that I struggle with. How best to phrase this is what I'm thinking. As a doctor, they'll tell you that you need to have attention to detail. If you're in secondary school, they'll tell you that the HPAT, is the means of identifying that. And that's very much the case. And I think that I have attention to detail, no doubt about it. But I think my attention to detail seems to be varied, what it is that I have an ability naturally to attune to and what it is that I'm not, right? To provide a bit of context, some of my challenges were so severe that it got to a stage in this 2-year period where some extended friends and trusted advisors said, do you want to get screened for ADHD? Because it's just a little bit abnormal that you don't know, like that you're struggling this much. And I did get screened, and they told me, and I went to a very reputable source. I'll actually find the details and I'll put it in the notes. And I was told that I don't have ADHD. Now, that was more than a year ago that I did the screening. On further reflection, honestly, I probably have ADHD. Probably, more than likely. I think the reason why I didn't get that diagnosis is part of the screening process involves you being part of the screen is not just an interview with you, but also your parents and relatives and others provide context and fill in forms. And so I know for a fact that my mom downplayed my symptoms, particularly those that were arising from childhood. And that's a very unique experience to Africans, sort of our overemphasis on positivity, not necessarily looking for diagnoses, maybe seeing diagnoses as a personal reflection on parenting and other complicated multifactorial reasons as to why she downscored me. And she said it to me that she would downscore me, right? Now, if I wanted to, if I was really seeking a diagnosis, I could redo the screening and maybe provide context from other people, maybe work colleagues, maybe some of my mentors and sort of more in-tune people. I have a lot of people around me who are in tune with me, that can provide context as to my struggles and my issues and all this stuff. So, but I'm not necessarily seeking a diagnosis. Before I went for screening, I had spent a lot of time reflecting, what is this going to look like if I get a diagnosis? How is this going to make me feel? Will I come out on YouTube and say it? What will I tell people in work? Do I tell HR? So many questions I had to sift through, and I talked through, and I'm so grateful that I had a consultant in pediatrics who was a very dear friend, but more so mentor, who I could chat through what this all looks like before I even went for the screening. So I think I was prepared either ways. But when it came back as a no, I said to myself, it doesn't explain why I still struggle in a sense, but I'm not seeking a diagnosis, so I didn't do it again. And maybe in the future, for the sake of interest, I might rescreen and get more robust sort of additional input from different characters in my life to see what that would say. But ultimately, it's not, the diagnosis is not going to solve my life problems. Now, from that point, I've actually, gone into therapy, because while I didn't get a diagnosis, there were things in my report that were particularly helpful, highlighting some childhood traumas, unique experiences that happened to me that may explain why sometimes my attention sort of seems to wane. So from that space, I then went into psychotherapy, counseling, and sort of working through some issues. I don't think I can say that has led to an improvement in my attention as of yet, but definitely led to an improvement in sort of managing anxiety, managing stress, understanding anxiety, understanding my stress levels response and my stress response, understanding my own personal cycle, as in how I go, understanding my energy levels and things like that. So it's been useful, but it's a work in process, and I think I'll probably be in therapy for some time still before I can categorically say I've seen meaningful change. And I think that going forward, something that I might want to look into is probably like some CBT or whatever, but I'm not there yet. We'll take it face by face. So let's go back to my second year as an SHO in this new job. I'm working in a specialist space, and again, there's just the type of job that I was working in, high risk, really sick kids, really sad stories, and I think that that got to me. I just wasn't expecting to be so deeply affected by those children. And I think that people say it all the time, how can you work with kids? How can you work with sick kids? What does that look like for you? And I'm always like, oh, it's actually grand. Like, kids bounce back so quickly. It's such a beautiful thing to be a part of their journey. They're sick, they come in, and they're well, and they go home. So that's all good and well until you work in something where that's not the case, you know, where they're sick and they stay sick. They're sick and they die. And every single child, 6 months, impacted me greatly. Every child I came into contact with they left a mark, right? And each experience made you want to do better with the next kid. But I think I took that home with me often, you know, the heaviness, the sadness, like walking into a room where parents are receiving diagnoses, it floors you. Being in a room where parents are crying, hearing consultants at the peak of their game telling parents, we don't have the answers. Hearing a consultant say, I don't know what this looks like for you and your family and your child. It was a lot for me. And I think that with each new day, I carried yesterday. And you know, one of the consultants pulled me aside one of the days and said, Favor, you came in here with such a light, such a positive energy, and we've just watched that dip. Like, what's going on with you? And I actually broke down in tears. I started crying, and I was like, I'm so stressed. I can't believe how busy this job is. I can't believe how sad this job is. I can't believe how sometimes I wonder if we're making a difference. And the ultimate answer is yes, we're making a difference. But it's hard to conceptualize sometimes. I remember talking to one of the nurses about this, and she's been working in that field for, I don't know how she's done it, but she's been in that specialty for 20 years. I don't know how. And she said that she just focuses on the positive stories, focuses on the lives that you do impact, and that's how you get longevity in a field like this, to be honest. Even talking about this is hard for me, to be honest, because I'm remembering things and I'm not going to cry on camera. In the past, I've also spoken about that. In my Newbury interview, I spoke about being misunderstood because I'm all about the crack. And if you don't deliver that expectation and you present yourself as like, I'm just here to have a good time, which I do most of the time, it's all good and well to somebody actually misunderstands that as you are
100%
unprofessional. That sometimes people think, oh, she's not serious or she's not a good doctor, when in reality, I actually very much care. It's just I'm jovial. Anywho, so that's all happening. And there's so many stories I could share with the whole kids and the African kids and the scenarios I experienced and whether or not I felt they were being mistreated. And I actually ended up speaking to one of the said consultants and saying everything I feel. And I was glad I said it, but I don't think it made a difference in that she didn't turn around and say, yeah, I mistreated or instead it was more of a reflective conversation. But I believe that conversation would for sure influence how she or at least I hope that it will influence how this person practices medicine going forward. And kudos to this person because she heard me and I did not say easy things. I more or less was almost kind of calling out racism in the department. There was a time when I was so angst up about this racism thing that I started wearing like dashikis and African attire to work. I got them made by my aunt and I flew them over from Nigeria because I don't even own any. And I was like, I'm gonna start wearing like African prints in the hospital because I need to like disrupt everybody's peace, and it was a whole thing. But again, that too was taking a toll. When you are attentive to people's stories and the emotions in the room and you're journeying with a patient through their experience, if you're not careful, you lose what it is that you're there to do. And a few of the consultants explained this to me. We are medical doctors. There is a role for a social worker. There is a role for a psychotherapist. And we actually had access to these resources, so we were able to provide this to the family. There's a role for when the priests come in and have a chat with them, you know, chaplaincy. there's like, medicine's holistic. But I think as the doctor, you have to remember that all these MDT type approaches to medicine are individuals who have their jobs. And as a doctor, you were there for the clinical science, as well as empathy and all this kind of stuff, but the clinical science. So I think sometimes I lean so heavily into the other roles that the clinical science, I'm, spending half an hour talking with a parent about something, and then it's 5 p.m. and I still have like 7 MRIs to book. And so, it was just learning to, and I felt that I was good at that kind of stuff, because when you're working in ED, you don't got time to spend half an hour with a parent talking about their feelings. You just do your examination, see the patient, come up with your impression, book your, it's pretty on the ball, and you got very good at doing that. And I thought I was good at that, and I think I am. But then if you switch over to this specialty-based jobs, there's just more of that, and you see the parents more because they're coming in again and again. So I think I lost the sense of urgency for the other parts of my job that are as important as a doctor, if not more, especially as a junior doctor, because if you don't get those bits booked and those bits done, sure, of course, how could you be in a position in the ward round the next day to present facts to your consultant? And you can't just be like, oh yeah, they're not, like, the whole psychosocial element is a one-liner in your handover. Like, you still have to have all the science and then be able to say, and X and Y, Z is happening, and I've spoken to so the medical social workers, and they'll be down to speak to the family. So it's just, I had to learn that the hard way. So that brings me on to my last job. 6, 12, 18 months together, and you're working in, I'm happy to say, the Rotunda Hospital, the single busiest hospital in terms of the volume of births happening in a Dublin hospital. So like, babies are being pumped out by the second, I felt anyway. So that type of job is beautiful because it allows you to use all the skills that I just mentioned over the last 18 months and put them together. And my organizational skills, I now understood the importance, right? I now valued the balance, right? I now saw that it's all good and well to have the chats with the parents or the kids, or, well, in this case, they're babies, so you're not having the chats, but you got to get the job part done. So I was way more systematic, much more faster, much quicker with my bits and bobs. And you learn to just find a moment to squeeze in for a parent or two when you notice the cues, right? So you'll know when a parent is teary-eyed, and you can give them an extra moment. But the volume in that place, my goodness, you just had no choice. You had to get going. You had to there were just too many babies being born. So you'd be like in the delivery suite, then you'd be in postnatal, then you'd be in ED, and then you'd be like, it was back to back. You could have multiple times, 12-hour shift, no break, no water, no nothing. If not for the fact that I had a fabulous team of SHOs, it would have been a miserable job. Quite enjoyed it, but it was intense. But I think everything I'd learned over the last 18 months came really handy, and I think it just clicked for me in that last job. And that's why we train. That's why there's training, is to provide opportunities to identify your weaknesses, identify your challenges, be trained, because every time you have a new job, you have a trainer and take on their feedback. And so I think this job, I didn't have as much sort of negative feedback. I didn't have so much. I was much better at my own personal organization. Knowing what works for you. I don't do this whole notebook thing. I type it on my phone, especially in the middle of the night. I'm not gonna remember where I put the piece of paper. So, so it's just knowing what works for you, and working within the team. So, that's pretty much my 2 years, and now I'm gonna go up and be a reg, and that has its own series of, I suppose, concerns that I have. Like, will I be able to do this? Like, low-key, am I good enough? Have I built on these skills enough to be able to categorically do the job? So I feel at peace in terms of I'm giving this my best stabbing, but also, I'm very aware that this is a serious job, and I think it's going to be fine overall. And I know people in terms of other regs that I've already reached out to be like, how can you support me in this as I transition? So, it'll be fine. I look forward to sort of doing another video in a year's time, reflecting on my journey as a first-time reg and seeing what happens. I also have other videos I want to do for like my SHO years, but I think with medicine, because I'm particularly mindful that when this goes up online, it'll be seen by my trainers, trainees, and I don't want them having a headspace. If I posted this video live as it was ongoing, it would look like I was sort of speaking negatively about said people. And honestly, I probably would have spoken negatively. I think I've processed so much that this is a very neutral tone. I feel very neutral about all these topics, but in the moment, it was like fire up both ends. So yeah, we'll see how things go as I start a new job. The other thing I wanted to reflect on was exams. You know, as I said at the start, 3 exams. I did the first exam thanks to one of my regs. He actually encouraged me to book it. I wasn't even looking to book. And then I kind of changed the date without telling him, and I moved it out because I was like, I'm not ready to sit this. So I sat it when I was ready, passed. Second exam, I gave myself a bit of a break again. Sat the exam, passed, right? And those two, especially the second one, I don't even know if I'd done enough work. I just kind of hoped for the best. But the third exam was an interesting one because I had thought, like everybody kept saying, the clinical exam is the easiest of them all. You'll be fine, nothing to worry about. You don't even have to prep, just practice. So now I had basically taken that attitude on, and I don't know if I prepped as much as I should have. I practiced with a group of people, but I didn't necessarily prep. And I was just pretty chill about it. And also I had so much going on at the time. That's when I was working in that specialty job, you know, that 6-month block where things were really, really tough. And things were tough in work, things were tough at home. I think I was just experiencing challenges on pretty much a lot of fronts in my life, and I was overwhelmed, is the way to put it. And I was squeezing in a bit of study, but ultimately I failed that exam. And that sent me on a spiral. So if you remember me saying earlier this year, that this block of this year, 2025, January to July, I've done nothing, that's because I reclused and I just was trying to like handle the impact of failing that exam. I'm not expecting to fail, and all of my friends who we'd study together had passed, and I just didn't expect to fail, right? Because it's the clinicals, I do this every day, I shouldn't be failing. So, and then because everybody had said this is the easiest of them all, like 91% pass rate and all this stuff. So then to not pass, you're like, okay, so I'm part of the 9% of people who don't know what they're doing. So it was a lot to take on. So I ended up just chilling for 6 months of the year, reflecting on that, moaning and complaining and grumbling about it in therapy. And then did it again, thankfully passed it. So, and then I came to Ghana, so like it's been a great sort of pass the exams, pass my repeats, and then come here. I look forward to the graduation in September. I just wanted to mention that failure does happen still. And of course there's superhumans out there who go through the scheme, boom, 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 boom. Actually, I had one of my colleagues who did all 3 exams in one 6-month block. Like that is insane level of just genii. But that wasn't my story. And I like to share my failures on this channel because I just don't think failure is spoken enough about. There's too much assumption that everything is fine. I think I've said enough to wrap this video. Thank you for joining me on the channel strip. Remember to channel your energy to learn new things and strip away negative misconceptions.